Hello and welcome to another episode of the UCLA Bruins Insider Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Connor Moreno, lead writer for UCLA Bruins on SI. And today we're going to talk a little bit about a recruitment development that happened at the last day of June, which was yesterday, June 30th. It doesn't really affect UCLA's recruiting class. Well, I mean, it does because obviously UCLA didn't land him, but it doesn't affect how UCLA finished off June and honestly their overall month of June. As we talked about in yesterday's episode, they had a tremendous June, landing 15 of their 21 recruits. Towards the end, it did slow down a little bit. They ended up losing, I think it was 3 or 4 battles. They were in like the top 5, top 3, top 4 of like 3 different recruits. But I mean, overall, regardless, even if they lost those recruits, they still had one of the best recruiting months maybe in program history. One of the best, not the best, obviously, but they finished off the month of June inside the top 20 in the nation in the 2026 recruiting class. Let's get right into this development. So a couple days ago, 3-star Utah defensive lineman Lopeti Moala, he included the Bruins in his top 4 along with BYU, Utah, and Stanford. That was a couple days ago. He announced on Twitter, and on yesterday, he went ahead and committed to BYU. So that is another kind of relatively close recruitment that the Bruins lost. I wrote about it earlier in the week. Actually, when he announced his top 4, I wrote that according to Bruin Report Online, the Bruins were in contention, but it was kind of looking like he was going to commit to one of the Utah schools, and he went ahead and committed to Brigham Young. So that's another recruit that UCLA is missing out on. Obviously, you want to stack as many recruits as possible, but I mean, this doesn't really affect how truly dominant their month of June has been. In Moala's Twitter post, he said, "Thank you to all the coaches and schools who offered me. After talks with my parents, personal prayer, and careful consideration, I've decided to commit to Brigham Young University." So UCLA lost out again. If we go back to literally this last week of June, it's kind of been rough. I mean, I hate to say rough because this is like the best recruiting class that UCLA has had in over a decade. So I hate to say rough, but when you put it in terms of comparing how the earlier weeks of June went compared to how it kind of finished, it was a completely different game. In the first 2 weeks, UCLA was getting 3 stars, high-rated 3 stars and 4 stars pretty much every other day, what it seemed like. And so when you turn it into towards the end of the month, where they lose out on now 3 battles that they were in close contention for, they lost out on 3 of them, and they lost 2 of their pretty highly rated commits. It really stooped the strength of the class down comparatively to the nation. So you date back to earlier in the week, they lost a battle with Utah to Dylan Waters. 3-star Dylan Waters, he committed to Utah, and I think it was Utah, UNLV, and UCLA that were in his top 3. UCLA I think had probably the second best chances, maybe, of those schools. And then you fast forward a couple days later, they do receive a commitment from 3-star wide receiver Xavier Warren, but that's just Hassan Foster and wide receiver coach Burl Toller kind of bolstering their wide receiver class because they knew what was going to happen a couple days after that, which was Jaron and Kenan Pula went ahead and decommitted from UCLA. They'd been committed since about September. Jaron, he is a 4-star out of Utah, and Kenan, he is a high-rated 3-star. And they both decommitted from UCLA, which probably was the biggest blow, especially when you look at kind of the ranking of the class and where they rank in the nation. That was the biggest blow. It really knocked them down from sitting around that top 10 range to now past the top 15, which is still really good, especially when you compare the most recent years for UCLA. Anyways, and then a couple days after that, they're in a top 2 battle with Arizona for 4-star quarterback Oscar Rios. Now, on paper, that is a pretty big loss, but when you consider, Nico and Madden Iamalava coming in, and already the depth that they have at the quarterback position, it wasn't too big of a loss. It was kind of just like, yeah, that makes sense, because Oscar Rios is going to have a better path to becoming a starting quarterback in Tucson rather than committing to a pretty jam-packed quarterback room at UCLA. So it all makes sense why they lost that. Still, it would have been nice to have another 4-star. I think they have now 3 4-stars. Yeah, 3 4-stars on their, according to 247 Sports, according to them, they have 3 4-stars in their 2026 recruiting class. And then you fast forward to yesterday, Monday, when they lost 3-star defensive lineman Lopeti Moala to BYU. So, they're getting in these, like, the last few years, you probably wouldn't expect UCLA to be in this many close battles, especially for these highly rated recruits, but they're in there, and that's an indictment on kind of the culture shift that Deshaun Foster has cultivated in Westwood. This is his first full off season, and he is, just out the gates, just doing a tremendous job. And they also got the 3-star commitment of Torrey Davis a couple days ago, so that was their 15th overall recruit in June, and 21st overall. So they still have a really strong class on 247. They're 16th in the nation. On Rivals, they are 15th. On 3, they are 18th. ESPN hasn't updated their recruiting rankings beyond the Pula twins decommitting and landing Torrey Davis. So ESPN still had them 12th, but that shows you how high they were. During June, they reached peaks of, I think, 8th in the nation in their recruiting class. That was before a whole bunch of teams started catching up. And that was despite losing out on some big prospects during that time also. So, I think as we look forward to July, they're definitely going to be in more of these battles, in contention with more of these highly rated prospects. Most notably, we have 3-star Marcus Almada from Massachusetts. I've spoke on him before. He is very important because he is pretty closely connected to 4-star defensive lineman Carter Gooden. At one point, they were reported to be a package deal. I think that's since subsided. So they're not. It doesn't typically mean that if they do land Almada, then Carter Gooden is definitely going to Westwood, but it does mean that they have a significantly better chance at landing that 4-star. And I forgot to mention, Almada was actually given a crystal ball prediction to land with the Bruins, so they have a pretty good chance. It's been a cold couple weeks for UCLA fans that have been keeping track of recruiting, but I'm pretty sure better days are ahead. We were reaching peaks during June where I was every day on the podcast saying I wouldn't be surprised if they landed another one tomorrow, and then they ended up landing another one tomorrow. So it's definitely going to slow down in July. I'm pretty sure it will, but I think that the Bruins still have some good news ahead of them. So whenever any of that happens, we will have all the news for you. Again, thank you for watching and listening to the UCLA Bruins Insider Podcast. I'm Connor Moreno, and I will see you tomorrow.